Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're going to be doing a comic book review. We're going to be looking at the third arc in Invincible, which is collected in the entirety of Ultimate Collection number 3 and about half of Ultimate Collection number 4. This is issues 25, I think, or maybe 30 something. Let me see. No, 25 to 41, which is about halfway through here. And there isn't really a name for these arcs. These are kind of like fan-made arcs. I would call this the like intro to Vultrimite kind of saga, I guess, or arc here. Or you could also, I think the second one was when we get introduced to the multiverse, and then in this one we're mostly dealing with the Vultrimite kind of like gaining power, right? So, or maybe not gaining power, but rather getting closer and closer to Earth. And so I would call this the intro to the Vultrimites kind of arc or something along those lines, right? So, yeah, it's written by Robert Kirkman. What's his name? Cory Walker is credited as creator at this point in these books. And Ryan Ottley is the main artist. He's actually the only artist, I think, for these issues. I understand why Cory Walker still is counted as a creator, but at this point, this deep into the series, and also just in general, looking back at the fact that, you know, the series was huge and it's ended and it's been done for a few years, I honestly feel like Ryan Ottley is probably more important to the success and, you know, continued support that Invincible had throughout its run. And so I feel like he should get some creator credit as well, right? I mean, he didn't create the initial idea, but he as hell executed it, right? So, yeah, let me give credit to some of the other people that work on this. So, in chapters 28 to 31, Cliff Rothburn is the inker, the colorist is Bill Crabtree, and the letterer is Russ Wooten. And Bill Crabtree does the coloring for the covers as well. Let's see in the fourth one if there's any changes to that. The inker for the whole of the fourth issue, or the fourth volume, is Ryan Ottley. He does both the art and the inking. The colorist is Bill Crabtree, and the letterer here is Russ Wooten again. And it's amazing. This is really, really good stuff here. So, yeah, it's by Image Comics. Of course, it's under the Skybound imprint, whatever that really means. As you guys can see right there in the back, here's what the spines look like. These align with each other. However, it bothers me that they don't really correctly align with the other two that I have. And I think that's just a variation in printing. As time goes on, it doesn't suck, but it's not great either, right? And all 4 of my copies of this collection are the ones that have the cover printed directly onto the interior cover under the dust jacket. I know that sometimes some of these are actually printed in black where they don't have anything inside. So, thankfully, so far my set is similar, right? So, yeah, demographic-wise is a teen plus, like I've said before. The genre here is superhero, and I would definitely say that this leans very sci-fi, more so than before. Although with the superhero genre, sci-fi and fantasy go hand in hand. The superhero genre, it's its own thing that involves these other genres to a different level depending on what you're doing, right? So, yeah, I would say that the only real genre here is superhero, right? So, yeah. And of course, it does have an adaptation. This goes about as far as where the adaptation has gone right now. I think. I can't remember exactly. I think this goes a little bit further ahead, but not by much, where the end of the first part of the second season kind of stays at the beginning of this arc, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It really depends on how you want to look at it, I guess. So, yeah, and ratings-wise is a 5 out of 5. I think I finally got out of things that I knew from the first season, and all of this stuff was really, really good and interesting and enjoyable, right? So, yeah, the premise here is that Mark is settled into his new life as a superhero, but now his heritage as a Vultrimite comes to haunt him, basically, and war will soon come to Earth's shores, or to Earth's atmosphere, I guess is the right way to call it this time. And he basically has to get ready for this. So, really good stuff. I really enjoyed it. In terms of plotline, it opens up with Mark reconnecting with himself, with his childhood, with his youth, with his naivety, I guess you could call it, via going to the comic book shop after not going for a while. I definitely relate to that, since I basically go missing from my comic book shop for months at a time sometimes, because I'm either, visiting my parents for an extended time, or, whatever reason, I get busy with school. And so sometimes I just have to go back and buy all the comic books that I haven't bought in a while, right? So Mark's doing this mostly as a way to remind us of Science Dog, who is Mark's favorite comic book character. And this is so that immediately afterwards, we can introduce a person that looks like Science Dog and is asking for Mark to join him on an adventure. And so, of course, Mark knows that this isn't real. He's curious. He has problems. And it turns out that this guy is wearing this disguise to show him to be Science Dog, in order to be able to basically share the plight of these mantis people, of these aliens, with Mark. Apparently, this planet of theirs is going to quickly be destroyed by asteroids, and they need Mark's help to get rid of them, because they know that Mark is the strongest person in this area. And, Mark goes along with it. He kind of has a fight with Cecil about this. He's like, dude, these people need my help. I can't not help them. Please let me go. Cecil says no, so Mark goes anyways, even though he shouldn't, honestly. I think that Cecil is right, even though his reasons for it are not necessarily the right thing to say, right? So Mark decides to go with them, but it turns out that it was all a ploy from Nolan, from Omni-Man, to get Mark to go to this place, because he needs to talk to Mark about something very important that is also kind of life-changing for Mark, right? So it turns out that Nolan basically left Earth, fell into a depression, was just basically riding the solar winds, as you will, through space, just kind of going through the motions. He was actually kind of hoping to die. However, he's about to crest the edge of a black hole. He sees this spaceship full of mantis people trapped. There's a little girl in there, and so he decides to save them. And I think I'm actually pulling directly from the TV show at this point, but basically same idea. Maybe there's more detail in the TV show, but I mean, this part of the story is exactly the same as the last episode, right? And so he saves them. He decides to live with these people in this world. It's only been 6 months, but a lot of time has passed for them because of the way that they age. And Nolan has found a new wife. He has sired a child with one of these alien people. And this kid is of inferior genetic stock, because he is from a race of aliens that are not exactly similar to Vultrimites the way humans are. And so Nolan is afraid for this child, and so he needed the help of Mark in order to fight off this invading force of Vultrimites that are coming this way, now that Nolan has basically run away from his post, right? And so, since Nolan is a deserter, they're going to hunt him down, and he needs Mark's help in order to both save this planet, not get killed, and also save his second son. And so, Mark is actually really angry. He punches Nolan in the face. They reconnect after a while. He meets his baby brother. He talks to the mantis wife, and then the Vultrimites show up, and it's a crazy battle. There's this crazy situation. It's really, really good. There's an amazing panel that they tried to recreate in the show. It didn't really work. I think there could have been a way to do it. I just think the way that they chose to do so was not the right way to do it. However, I can't kind of really think of a way to do it without it kind of looking like a slideshow. And I think it already kind of did look like that. So it is what it is. Your mileage may vary. At that point, I think that they chose to do something that they couldn't really do in animation, and it didn't work that well for them. It was still cool, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't like that same visceral, like, oh shit reaction that you get from this sequence of panels in the comic book, right? So, yeah, but it's a really eventful situation. Eventually, Mark and Nolan still get beat. Some of the Mantis people survive, and Mark manages to save his little brother. And so the Vultrimites leave. They take Nolan with them, and they allow Mark to walk away because they're hoping that he will actually do Nolan's job for him, so, for them, actually. So they let him go, and, well, he eventually returns to Earth after a while. He reconnects with Amber and with Eve, and this sets up a love triangle that I think is good, but also finally gets through the Amber situation, which I didn't really have issues with. I actually think Amber in the comic book is really good, which I've mentioned before. But we kind of finally get through this. We kind of managed to finally move towards the one true pairing of the show, or of this comic book, which is, of course, Mark and Eve, right? And so, yeah. Then we kind of transition over to a new kind of story segment here. The Guardians are losing, new villains rise up, and Robot gets a real body. So this is the Rexplode clone thing that we saw in season 1. So this was mentioned here. However, because of the way that it tied into other things, it was actually used in the first season, and I think it was good that they did that. Debbie decides to care for the new child that Mark brought with him, and I think his name is Oliver. I can't remember how it works. So basically, in this Mantis alien society, they choose their own names. However, something happens. I think Debbie wants to call them something, and so she decides to call him Oliver. I can't remember how it happens. I might have just read his name somewhere. I really don't remember how he gets his name, but that's Mark's younger brother, right? And so, yeah, then there's this big fight with Levi. I can't remember how to say his name. With the dude that looks like he has a giant, mega mind head. And this is actually a really horrible situation. This is really, really rough. It's actually maybe the darkest thing we've seen so far. Like, Mark getting beat by Vultrimites is really fucked up, but also it's in the name. He's not gonna, like, lose, right? Like, he's not gonna die from it, but this is psychological damage. This is damage that you can't really see. This is like the worst type of stuff, right? And so this is significantly worse than basically any beatdown that Mark can get. And so this actually leads to Mark doing the unthinkable and actually killing Levi or whatever his name is. And it's really rough. I think this was a really interesting character development. It's one that really sucks, but also at the same time, Mark is a Superman type character. There has to be a moment where his morals have to break. And, it almost has that kind of like, Justice League kind of vibe to it, or Man of Steel kind of vibe to it, where it's like, there's nothing I can do to stop this besides killing this guy, so I have to do it. And it's really rough. I think it's a really good moment here. We move on. Immortal and Multicate. How do you say her name? Duplicate? Multiplicate? I don't know, whatever. Immortal and the chick that can copy herself get married. And basically, I think it's a good moment. I think it's interesting. The Reaniman plot finally gets finished, which is another thing that was finished much quicker in the show. And actually, it's actually not finished in the show, as far as I remember. However, the actual important stuff of the plot gets finished in the first season. And I think this is a really good moment here. It also shows that Cecil is he doesn't compromise when it comes to people following his directions, but he definitely compromises when it comes to following other people's desires for him, right? Like, so Mark asks him to get rid of this guy, to not let him do anything anymore, to make sure that he rots in prison. And immediately afterwards, Cecil is like, you want a job? Because the US government can use you. And it's rough, right? It sucks. So Will and Mark worked together to finalize that reanimate plot, and I think it was good. There's a new love triangle situation that happens here between Amber and this guy called Gary. And although I empathize with both Mark and with Amber, I feel like, even though it's not really fair to say this, Amber is coming off worse than Mark in this exchange, where she's kind of like dating this guy behind Mark's back, but also trying to make it seem like she's not, because she's trying to keep this level of like emotional distance between her and Gary. But I mean, they do end up going on dates together, even if they're saying they're hanging out. I feel like she comes off worse in the exchange, because whether, you know, it's fair or not of Mark to leave her alone for weeks at a time for not contacting her, Mark is actually doing something immensely important, which is saving the world, right? And so, although it's not fair, I do think that Amber comes off badly. And that kind of sucks, because I like her character, but also, like I mentioned before, there's no one, like Amber is not prepared to deal with the reality of having a boyfriend as a superhero. And so it makes sense that this sort of thing would happen. However, I really like how they both managed to finish their relationship amicably. They do it without a fight. They do it in a way that I find satisfying and meaningful and good. So I think that although she comes off badly, it works really well. I like how this was handled. So kudos to Robert Kirkman for that. Then we switch over to Alan and the Federation of Planets, or whatever they're called. And it turns out that he wakes up, he is stronger than ever before. Something happened to him, I can't remember what. And Thaddeus, the leader of this group of planets that are opposing the Vultrimites, happens to also be a Vultrimite. And so this is this big revelation that honestly was pretty shocking to me. I really felt like that came out of left field, but also it's really meaningful and good, because now there are like other sympathetic Vultrimites, and I think that's good. Then we're going to introduce to the Lizard League plot, which is basically they're going to take over a nuclear base in order to try to take control, basically to force the U.S. government to kneel to them in some way in order to give them what they want. Rexplode actually ends up being a hero here. I think he dies tragically at the end, but it was a good fight. I liked what was happening here. Also, the chick that can multiply, she dies as well, which is a problem because the Immortal had just married her, and so it sucks. And then this also happens at the same time as the Mars plot that was introduced early on in the comic book. It makes a return, and I really like it. I think this is the best part of the arc here. It's very sci-fi, of course, and it was really, really good. It was really enjoyable to read. I really liked it. I thought it was fun. I think that it was interesting to have two different alien invasion type plots and have one go off so badly and have another one that went off pretty well. So I really appreciate that kind of balance, that kind of juxtaposition between the two, just to show how dangerous the Vultrimites are. I think it worked out really well. So overall, the writing here was phenomenal. I think it was really, really enjoyable. In terms of characters, there's really no one new that's introduced, no one that really matters. However, it is, of course, the end of the Mark and Amber relationship. It's also the potential beginnings of the Mark and Eve romantic relationship, because there's a lot of stuff that happens here that relates to that eventuality, right? So a lot of character development here, a lot of growth from a lot of characters. Nolan was also a character that grew a lot, because when he leaves Earth, he is this despicable, horrible, kind of psychopath, I guess you could call him, sociopath, something like that, something unfeeling and horrible, right? However, the second time that we see him, we see that he has learned from his experiences on Earth. He has grown in some way. He has realized that the people on Earth matter to him in a way that he wasn't willing to understand before. And that perspective was given to him by distance. and also by experiencing inclusion into a new world again. And so lots of character growth there. I think it was good. In terms of world building, nothing too serious here. There's a lot of more sci-fi feeling to this, like I said before. You could argue that there's this kind of slight introduction of a new power for Mark, which is basically that he has to train till exhaustion so that he can grow. Now, this is actually technically not any different from how a normal person grows. However, because of the scale at which it happens, it is part of his superpower set, basically. You could argue that it's kind of like a Senkai boost, like the Saiyans get. Although I wouldn't really call it that, because Mark doesn't grow stronger because he's beat and recovers. He grows stronger because he trains, right? And so it's not the same thing. Although I'm not really sure about the rules of the Senkai boost, so it might actually just be a super version of, you know, healing up to be stronger, right? So yeah, I don't know. Overall, good stuff here with the world building. Nothing too serious, like I said. And in terms of artwork and fan service, the artwork is phenomenal. And I do feel like this part of the story, now that everyone is an adult properly, and then there's moving on to more serious things, the audience here is growing. I mean, at this point, 40 issues in, that's almost 3 years worth of serialization, I guess. You could argue that, or at least I would argue, because I think it was noticeable, that Ryan Ottley is deciding to draw his characters a little bit more sexy, a little bit more attractive than before. And I think it works really well. There's a lot of panels that stick to me that remind me of that, but also a lot of panels that I think are also just showing off that Ryan Ottley is getting comfortable, very comfortable with these characters, and doing a great job at expanding his ability to draw them. So overall, good stuff there with the artwork. No fan service in the sense that there's no scenes like in the previous arc that were about sex directly. Yeah, there really isn't anything like that. But of course, the characters all look more attractive than usual. So whatever you want to take from that, you can. So yeah, ratings-wise, 5 out of 5. It was a great arc. I really enjoyed it. It was immensely enjoyable to read. It was something that I had a great time with. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Invincible Arc 3, issues 25 to 41. Let me know what you thought down below, and hopefully I'll get another volume of this series soon so that I can continue to read it. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.